Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.
You know, I was telling you before we started the interview, it's great to interview you, but I love seeing you live on stage, as I have, multiple times with your band Gov't Mule and also with the Allman Brothers in the past. You guys have a new spring tour kicking off this year.
We do, finally. We've been locked down long enough, and we're ready to get back to work. We're promoting our new record, Heavy Load Blues, which is our first blues record ever. And so there's a lot of first times going on right now, but we're just psyched to get back to work.
Well, I got to brag on you some too, Warren, to where Heavy Load Blues, the album, #1 on Billboard, and I think it's already like 3.4 million streams. It's, huge on Apple, everywhere everyone consumes music. This album is going over great, and I also love the video with Make It Rain.
I guess the whole world's had the blues for the last couple of years, and I guess our timing was pretty good making a blues record because it's something I've wanted to do for a long time. And then when we were all locked down and couldn't tour and couldn't travel, it seemed to make sense to get in the studio and record as much as possible. But in hindsight, everybody's kind of going through the exact same thing. And so I think blues has always been good in these times,
Well, and I think you and your great band with Gov't Mule have done a great job on adding in originals into this album, but also your interpretations. I wouldn't say covers, but you're interpreting, Junior Wells, Tom Waite, Howlin Wolf, and it's like, and you really bring the Gov't Mule sound to them. I mean, some of them are like raw and almost industrial blues.
It was important to me, especially since I had written a handful of blues songs during the whole lockdown process. It was important that we do about half original material and half cover songs. And the covers, I wanted to kind of tackle artists that were big influences through the years, but some of those people I've covered in the past, so those I had already checked off, so the ones you mentioned, as well as Bobby Blue Bland, it was just a chance for us to kind of strip things down and show our roots a little more than we ever really have.
Well, I think, knowing your background also with, listening to the Three Kings and all the great blues artists you brought up, Bobby Blue Bland, it seems like a lot of those, you have those sounds and influences in this album. Like on one of the tracks, I kind of felt like it was a bit Hendrix and Cream. And then, but it's all Gov't Mule.
Well, you're probably referring to our version of the Howlin Wolf song, I Asked Her for Water.
Yep.
Which that one and the Junior Wells song that you mentioned, Snatch It Back and Hold It, they both go into these psychedelic type jams in the middle that are a little more what people might expect from us. But at the same time, some of the other songs stay more traditional. So, blues is kind of, it's a limited category if you let it be. But there's so many ways of interpreting the blues, so many different types of blues. So we wanted to cover as much ground within the genre as we possibly could.
I found it interesting, too. I read, Warren, to where, that all of the music gear and everything that you used, everything was older than you. And so, one of the amps that you drug in, apparently it had some microphonics and everything, including also picking up radio frequencies during one of the recordings in studio.
When we were recording Make It Rain, the Tom Waite song, we would get these noises that actually sounded like a rainstorm, and they happened during the actual recording of the keeper take. And I remember asking John Paterno, our co-producer, can we keep this take? It was such a great take. And he's like, oh, we have to keep it. Wait till you hear it. And so we went back in the control room and listened, and it sounded like we were playing during a rainstorm. I would say, make it rain, and it would go, it was really bizarre and kind of one of those weird kismet things that happens, We actually toned it down a little bit for the record because it was so over the top.
But also, Warren, it's one of those things that you and I know with music, and anytime you're playing music and you're using vintage equipment, you couldn't recreate that if you wanted to.
Right.
It was one of those things that just happens live because those old amps have their own quirks.
And we were videoing us recording the track, and you could actually see us like laughing when it would happen and stuff. We're looking at each other and the whole time thinking, well, we're not going to be able to use this take, but thankfully we were.
Well, you know, I got to bring this up too, Warren. You know, you guys launched Gov't Mule, which is hard to believe, back in 1994. And you're so well known for your incredible vocals and guitar work and obviously producing too. But I mean, playing with David Allan Coe, playing with the Dickey band, obviously the Allman brothers. But now Gov't Mule is kind of like an established heritage. How does that feel?
Well, it's hard to believe that, you know, we've been around that long. We started out as a side project. Myself and Alan Woody were full-time members of the Allman Brothers, and we shared a bus together, and we were talking about doing something for fun because the Allman Brothers only worked about half the year, and it left us all this other time to do something else. And so we decided to do Gov't Mule just as a fun project, not knowing that it would turn into a real band and catch fire like it did. Which I'm really glad that happened. And sometimes when things happen organically, you know, maybe that's the best way. But we never went into it thinking we would even do a second record.
Wow. How incredible with that. Now I wanted to bring up also with the new album, it was all recorded on analog tape also. And I think that adds to the warmth of the sound. And you guys are going to have a, you know, special deluxe sets coming out on vinyl with like a triple album, a double album, and then a double CD, right?
Yeah, there's so many different versions because we recorded a lot of material. And unlike a lot of deluxe versions where you're just getting alternate versions or outtakes or something, there's a lot of extra songs that we felt really good about, that it was hard to decide what should come out and what shouldn't come out. Yeah. So we really wanted to make it available to our fans. And our fans tend to be pretty excessive when it comes to music anyway, as I am. And back to the analog tape thing, you know, I love that sound, and it is a better way to capture music the way we love it. But we also used old amps, old guitars, old microphones, everything. As you mentioned before, I joked that everything in the room was older than me. And that was pretty much true. You know, it was great to kind of capture the way those old records sounded, you know, because a lot of my favorite blues records were done, I would say, between 1955 and 1975. So depending on which track you're listening to, you kind of get a little bit of that vibe in this record.
Congratulations on the first blues album by Gov't Mule, Heavy Load Blues. Warren Haynes, thanks so much for joining the Rock and Review. We can't wait to see you live on tour this year.
Thank you. Really psyched to get back to work.
Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of a Bobby Bones show.